like to call the meeting to order. Please stand for a pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the record, this is a public meeting of the Bayonne Board of Education. It is 8 p.m. the 31st day of January. We're convening in the Anna J. Herbert Meeting Room. The presiding officer is Joseph Broderick, President of the Bayonne Board of Education. Those in attendance include Dr. Michael A. Wanko, Superintendent of Schools, Mr. Kenneth Kopaz, Assistant Superintendent for Personnel, Dr. Gary Maida, Board Secretary, Mr. Leo J. Smith, Jr., Assistant Superintendent for Business, Dr. Dennis Degnan, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Mr. Mitchell Pascal, Esquire, our Board Counsel. The meeting's open to the public. I'd like to read two statements. Out of respect to all members of the public and student body who attend these meetings, we believe that it is imperative that these meetings be conducted in accordance with the well-established rules of public decorum as promulgated by the state of New Jersey and the long-standing policies of this board. During some of the recent meetings, there have been instances of disruptive behavior and instances of failure to adhere to this board's policy regarding time limitations on public comment. First, I will start with the time limitation placed on public comment. Both the United States Supreme Court, the New Jersey Supreme Court have held that a public body may impose reasonable time restrictions on public comment during meetings open to the public. Consistent with the practice and policies of many boards of education throughout the state of New Jersey, this board has a policy in place that limits each public speaker to 3 minutes. This policy means that any member of the public can address an agenda item with comment that is specifically relevant to that particular agenda item, when such agenda item is open for public comment. In addition, any member of the public can address any matter specifically relevant to the school district during the open public comment period. In all such instances, whether the public comment is related to items on the agenda or whether it is related to matters concerning the school district, the board intends to strictly enforce this time limitation policy as to all, and I emphasize, all members of the public. So out of respect for all other speakers in this board, please be mindful of this policy when you consider your comments. Second, as to the conduct of certain members of the public, our courts have also held, and I quote, "A public body may control its proceedings in a content-neutral manner by stopping the speaker who is disruptive, who fails to keep to the subject matter of the agenda. Outbursts, badgering, constant interruptions, profanity, and disregard for the rules of decorum cannot be tolerated by this board. As such, I must inform you that this board is empowered with the authority to remove the removal of any member of the public who conducts him or herself in such manner pursuant to NJSA 18A11-11 and NJAC 6A23-3.1, an advertised notice in the Jersey Journal on December 22, 2017, additional notice on January 15, 2018. Tonight, the public may comment on the district interim superintendent contract for 2018-19 school year, which has been approved by Melissa A. Pierce, the interim executive county superintendent. I'll take a roll call to the public meeting. Trustee Alonso. Present. Trustee Cruden.
Here.
Trustee Desmond.
Here.
Trustee Finnerty.
Here.
Trustee Munoz.
Here.
Trustee Ryan.
Here.
Trustee Villado.
Here.
Vice President Wilbeck.
Here.
President Broderick.
Here. For the record, adequate written advance notice of at least 48 hours giving the time, date, and location of this meeting with the agenda was provided as follows. Notice was prominently posted in City Hall at 630 Avenue C on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements of the Board of Education. The board secretary sent such notice to the Jersey Journal and the Bayonne Community News. Notice was filed with the municipal clerk of the city of Bayonne, Mr. Robert F. Sloan. Thank you.
Okay, we will start with our approval of minutes and our acceptance of communications. I'd just like to note for the public, there is an addition to communications. It is Mr. Peter Allen, and it is a resignation. It is included in our packet up on A1, on the first packet up on the bulletin board if you'd like to see it. Do I have a motion on approval of minutes and acceptance of communications?
I move.
And is there a second? Okay, on that motion and second, Trustee Alonso?
Aye.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Villado?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick?
Yes.
Okay,
Mr. D'Angelo has a
I'm
question.
sorry.
you allow him?
I'd like a letter read into the file.
Sure. Okay, letter dated January 22nd, 2018. Dr. Maida, please provide copies of the enclosed to all board members. Sincerely, Mr. Alan D'Angelo, President of the Bayonne Teacher Association. January 22nd, Board Trustees. At the January 9th, 2018 Board of Education meeting, a discussion ensued indicating that the BTA should have signed the 4-year agreement during the last round of negotiations. The BTA would like to set the record straight. Following 16 bargaining sessions beginning in April of 2015, at the November 21st, 2016 negotiation sessions, the board updated its offer to include a 4th year, which required, among other things, a change in health benefits from Direct 10 to Direct 15. At that time, the BTA was willing to discuss the 4 years, but was not willing to make a change in the health benefits. When we ended that meeting, the board's team stated they needed to go back to the full board to discuss it. At that time, there was nothing in writing or any agreement or document to sign. When we returned on the November 29th, 2016, we were told by Mr. Clark that the board's last offer was a whole package, and any one item rejected means the whole package is rejected. At that time, there was nothing in writing or any agreement to sign. We also discussed the problems with the budget as reported by the board's auditors. After much time and discussion, the board offered to remove their demand for change in the medical benefits. The BTA caucused and agreed to accept the board's proposal. But at this point, the board was not willing to sign a memorandum of agreement. Therefore, a non-binding tentative agreement enclosed outlining the proposal was signed by both sides and included 1, 4-year contract, 2, change in percentage of high school teachers teaching 6 periods, 3, volunteers for cafeteria duty, 4, start of school before Labor Day in certain circumstances, 5, pay retro after July 1st, 2017, 6, no change in health benefits. The board did not sign this tentative agreement with... The board did sign this tentative agreement with the understanding that due to its budgetary concerns, it needed to go back to the full board for final approval. On December 7th, 2016, we met again and again discussed the problem with the budget and that the board would be meeting to discuss the auditor's report. No agreements were reached on the proposal. On December 20th, 2016, The BTA was informed by the board's team that there was a shortfall of $2 or $3 million. They could not honor any proposal of 4 years. In fact, they said we can only do the current year with one retro year, but cannot make any proposals moving forward until the board can straighten out its budget problem. Therefore, contrary to what was stated at the January 9th meeting by Trustee Ryan or Bob Clark, while there may have been proposals offered by both sides and a tentative agreement, there was never a final written memorandum of agreement to be signed. In fact, the only document that was signed, the tentative agreement, was rejected by the board due to their budgeting failures. It is the expectation of the BTA that this matter over the last contract can be closed and that we can move forward more productively, working towards settling the current contract dispute. Sincerely, Alan D'Angelo. And there is a follow-up attachment, which I believe is the tentative agreement.
Yeah. Well, it's up to Jim.
If you feel.
Yes, Alan, I had a chance to review your letter to the board tonight, and there's a couple things that I need to point out to you. First of all, the board's first four-year proposal was on February 2nd of 2016, not November 21, 2016. On November 1, 21, 2016, they increased the proposal to 2.62, 3.8, 3.8, 3.0, but it remained a four-year proposal. The second thing is that because the board's proposal, dating back a few sessions before that, included a change from Direct 10 to Direct 15, which money was being used to increase the percentages in the 4 years of the proposal, the board said at that session that the BTA had until November 30th to accept that proposal, because if we didn't have an agreement on it by November 30th, we couldn't get the state to save plans. And you caucused, you actually came back with the concept of 3 years, and ultimately you said that it was too little money. And you asked us to go back to the board, which we did go back to the board and talk about other things. But what Trustee Ryan was saying was his first board meeting was right before our negotiation session, and he was aware that we were putting that on the table with the caveat that we had a November 30th deadline so that we could achieve the savings to fund it. And your letter doesn't point that out. The other parts of your letter I agree with, but that's a key part of it that's missing.
All right, moving on.
Okay. All right, we'll start with our consent agenda. Before I do that, though, we have our student government representative, and I'd like to get him up to the mic first, Mr. Victor Lazaro from Bayonne High School, because he's got homework to do, and we want to get him home early. Victor, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Board of Education trustees, intern superintendent Dr. Wonko, assistant superintendent Lopez, Dr. Deadman, and Mrs. Smith. Today I have some interesting information to share with all of you. First, members of student government attended at the New Jersey Association of Student Councils 92nd Annual Winter Convention on January 10th at the College of New Jersey. Since 1927, each January, the student council leaders of New Jersey and their advisors convene to elect their state officers. The annual winter convention provides nationally recognized motivational speakers and memes for sharing ideas with schools throughout New Jersey. Over 30 breakout sessions was held showcasing student council projects with both students and the advisors presenting, as well as opportunities for advisors and other teaching professionals to receive professional development hours. Second, Since it's still freezing cold outside, the student government will continue on selling hot chocolate on Mondays and Fridays for $1 a cup. Valentine's Day is just around the corner, and we've decided to sell our annual candygrams to the student body. Students will have an opportunity to purchase a candygram for their dear friend and write a loving message. And we're hoping for the continued support of these fundraisers. Thank you.
My man, Victor. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you, Victor.
Victor, have a good night.
Okay, we'll start with our consent agenda. As we'll break it down, we'll do curriculum first. This will be resolutions A1 to A16. I'd just like to make a note that resolution A9 is being moved to non-consent. So our curriculum agenda, resolutions A1 to A16, and A9 is being moved to non-consent. Do I have a motion on the agenda?
I'll motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second on the consent agenda. Trustee Alonso.
Aye.
Trustee Cruden.
Yes.
Trustee Desmond.
Yes.
Trustee Finnerty.
Yes.
Trustee Munoz.
Yes.
Trustee Ryan.
Yes.
Trustee Villado.
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck.
Yes.
President Parag.
Yes.
Okay, next up, we will deal with our finance and building and ground resolutions, which will consist of resolutions B1 through B24. You have a question, Mr. D'Angelo?
Yes, on B16, it refers to the installation of a new elevator in Bayonne High School, and the money on this is just for an increase in the contract of $2,900. What's the total cost of that elevator to the district?
Mr. Smith?
Yeah, that elevator was purchased with money generated through the cafeterias, Mr. D'Angelo. I believe it was about $460,000 to install that elevator. As you know, the original elevator in that building often gets stuck and was very problematic. It's a piston type of elevator. We've had many problems maintaining that elevator. It's an original piece of equipment from 1932 when the building was first put in, and this new elevator is serving us very well. This change order for $2,900 has to do with the electronics and cutting the doorways a little bigger over the course of the summer. They finally completed everything. They finally got all their paperwork in, all the keys and the certificate of occupancy, and the inspection by the city of Bayonne has been completed, and that's the last payment that we'll see on that particular elevator.
When you say that the money is generated by the cafeteria, what do you mean, a
We took
profit?
over the food services about 3 years ago.
Right.
And we generated a profit, and that profit was utilized in putting that elevator in. Because food service naturally is going to use it. The building was designed in such a way where, you know, having been taught here, that the cafeteria and all the cooking goes on the third floor. And to feed those approximately 3,000 people every day, that one elevator that we had was small to begin with. It was not really doing the job, was breaking down, as I said. With this new freight elevator, we were able to utilize the money generated from the cafeteria funds to get this elevator project approved and done.
If I'm not mistaken, the profits from the cafeteria have to go back into the food service.
Right.
In other words, we
Cannot
couldn't use
use
that
them.
money in other ways.
We cannot use them for salary. We can't even use them to pay teachers to cover cafeteria. The government, the USDA, has many strict guidelines on the use of that funding.
Let me be clear, because the oldest elevator in Bayonne High School, you know, that goes from the basement to house 3.
Right.
You're not replacing that one.
No, we put a brand new elevator.
You put it, this is done already.
Yeah.
That's what I
This was
thought.
a change order
Right.
for different keys and a computer pad so we could get up and down and then utilize it. It was the last piece of the puzzle before everybody signed off on it.
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion on the finance portion?
I move.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and second on the agenda for Finance Committee. Trustee Alonso?
Aye.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Finerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Villado?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick.
Yes.
Moving along, Section C, which is our personnel resolutions. Resolution C1 to C17. Do I have a motion
I motion.
and a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and a second on the curriculum portion of the consent agenda. Trustee Alonso?
Aye.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Finerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Villado?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick.
Yes.
Okay, that takes us to the non-consent portion of the meeting. I will start with Resolution A9, which was moved to non-consent. I will not read the whole resolution. This is staff to attend workshop. It is Resolution A9. It is still on the front bulletin board. It is Elizabeth High School for a model ESL program. We have a list of 14 staff members that will be attending. Do I have a motion?
I'll move.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion and second on A9. Trustee Alonso?
Aye.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Abstain.
Trustee Finerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Villado?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick?
Yes.
Moving along, I will start with D1. But we do have some cards, I believe. Yes. Mr. Barry Dugan, 796 Avenue A, has a question on D1. Dugan, I remind you, we have a 3-minute limit.
Thank you. The superintendent of schools was notified in early 2017 that you were not renewing her contract. At that time, I believe a search was started to find an interim superintendent. You've had a year to do that, and now you're asking for another year and a half. Where is the search for a world-class leader to assume the duties of our superintendent?
Committee is being put together as we speak to start addressing that. So we hope to be going forward with that in the very near future.
Will you agree that this should have been taken place long before now?
No, only because of the situations we're in haven't been complete. Our goal was actually to bring in a superintendent or an interim superintendent to kind of clear up the matters that we have pending right now. And hopefully, by the end of this next season, we should, and during that season, give us plenty of time to take a look if that's the desired way we'd like to go.
All right, thank you.
Resolution D1, whereas,
See, this is.
I was waiting for you to say I have a few questions, otherwise I would have raised my hand.
I must point out to you, Mr. D'Angelo, as I said to our attorney, and as I read my statement in the beginning of the meeting, in our explanation of resolutions and public speaking, your card says any and all, and I think we have, I'm scratching my head with, when I get a card that says any and all, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with it.
Well, for 25 years, I had never filled out a card. This is a new procedure. I ask questions as I read the resolutions, and at the end of the meeting, if I have something I want to ask. I don't know how to write that down, because as you're speaking and running the meeting, I'm trying to read through all of the resolutions and the changes that you told me about earlier. How would you like me to proceed?
I think since this last few months, the board has made a big effort to get our agenda online 48 hours before this meeting. Granted, there might be a few resolutions that might be new, but the majority of the agenda was on our website this Monday. So I would say in the future, I think there is enough time on specific resolutions, if you could kind of meet us halfway on that.
I'll make every attempt. Yesterday,
I think we're just
yesterday was not 24 hours ago, when I saw you in the hall at 1 o'clock. They were not on the website. You couldn't access the website. We tried several times. You gave me
Yeah.
the hard copy at about 1 o'clock. I took it with me. I read it last night. You told me tonight that you were tabling the last 6 or 7.
Six.
Very hard to keep up with what you're doing. So I will try in the future to write each resolution, but if I miss one, I want to reserve the right to come up and ask the question.
And as this board has always promised the public, we're making an effort to get things on 48 hours in advance. Unfortunately, our IT department did run into a problem on Monday when it was being posted. I believe it did go on yesterday, though, so we'll both work at this.
I'll try. This refers to D1. It's the second-year contract for Dr. Wanko. Is there any increase in salary or any change in working conditions or any other compensation that is included this year that wasn't last year, or change in compensation?
Mr. Clark addressed that.
Thank you. The per diem rate for vacation days was changed to be consistent with the salary. And the per diem rate is calculated by taking 1/260th of the salary. And the net effect of that, if the days are not used, if vacation days are not used, would be $74 per day. In addition, the new contract provides that unused personal days can be carried over as vacation days.
When you say 1/260th, it wouldn't be 70-some dollars, it'd be $800.
That's the increase, 74.
How much is it, what is the per diem rate, the new per diem
The
rate
per diem rate would be $756.
per day?
Right, and that.
To what
That's
limit?
calculated by taking 1/260th of the salary.
I think I got it.
Right.
But is there a limit on how many days can be cashed in?
No, there's not a limit.
No limit. I request a copy of the present, this new contract, please, and last year, so I can compare it. Thank you.
Resolution D1, whereas the Bayonne Board of Education desires to employ Dr. Michael A. Wanko as its interim superintendent of schools for the 2018-19 school year, whereas Dr. Michael A. Wanko has agreed to accept such continued employment as the board's interim superintendent of schools, whereas the interim executive county superintendent for Hudson County has reviewed and approved the interim superintendent employment agreement between the Bayonne Board of Education and Dr. Michael A. Wanko. Therefore, be it resolved that the Bayonne Board of Education hereby appoints Dr. Michael A. Wanko as its interim superintendent effective July 1, 2018, for a term of 1 year expiring on June 30th, 2019, subject to the terms and conditions of the interim superintendent employment agreement. Be it further resolved that the board president, board secretary are authorized and directed to execute the aforesaid interim superintendent employment contract on behalf of the Bayonne Board of Education. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Do I have a motion and second? Trustee Alonso?
Aye.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Finerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Villado?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick?
Yes.
Okay, Resolution D2. Mr. D'Angelo?
At the last meeting, I objected to the medical coverage that were given these two doctors. I believe it was employee spouse. And the board said they were going to look at it again. What is the situation now?
Well, we did take a look at that, and after consideration, we respect that you brought that up to our attention. What we came down to the situation was that we made a contract with these two physicians in good faith, and not to live up to that for this year would not be exactly fair. We did promise to take a look at this now, and that doesn't mean that in the future there will be benefits or health benefits or the salary. Just a reminder that the salary hasn't changed for the last 3 years. That has stayed. But as far as you brought up the good point about the medical, and we will look at that, but the fact is that we made a contract with these people in good faith that they would get the benefits they're getting right now, so we feel that it should continue for this year.
But when you make, if I'm not mistaken, you made a contract, but it wasn't passed by the board. So
No, but it was an agreement that don't forget, these people have been getting these benefits for the last, I don't know how many years. It's probably been 20 years.
the only benefits I know that they were getting was single coverage.
I don't believe that was the case. They were
They were getting husband, wife
correct.
for all those years.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
No, they were.
When they were first hired by the board, Mr. D'Angelo,
We got a
I
family.
think Dr. Serafino goes back to prior to 2008, and Dr. Deduces about 2011. When they came in, the boards at those time, because it was discretionary, they decided to give them family. Dr. Serafino had family for a while. He's now down to husband, member spouse, as is Dr. Deduces member spouse. The Chapter 78 deductions at the Tier 4 level, based on their salary, is coming out for both of them.
The last question on this topic is, if these two doctors are part-time, how are they allowed to be given benefits? I know if my teachers are part-time, they don't get them. So why would they, part-time wouldn't qualify them for benefits?
The part-time, it depends what you consider part-time. The amount of hours that they put in, they range on a different kind of basis. And like you said, it may not be a good idea to give them benefits, but it's a deal that we've already made, and to drop that out in the middle of a year, I don't think would be very fair. But as far as their year goes, there's probably weeks that they work an awful lot.
No one did it to you.
Whether it's, this goes back to Dr. Mellendick, actually. But there's seasons that, they're doing the football games, they're doing all the physicals, they're doing,
Mitch would like to.
and I'll turn this over to our attorney right now.
Just one additional note, Mr. D'Angelo, the statute, Title 18A, requires that the board employ, not contract, but employ medical inspectors. Numerous school districts out throughout the state employ them, pay them salaries because they're required to at reorg, and some do pay benefits, some do not. Depends on what you negotiate, depends on who's willing to come to the table and what they're willing to do. But you have to statutorily provide these medical inspectors. And that means the next time they negotiate around the corner, if they can't get anyone to come in here without benefits, they still have to get someone in here, so they may have to do it. So that, that's a decision for the board. But the reality is statutorily, they're required to hire these individuals as employees, and it is to their discretion, the salary amount and benefits.
It's the board's
Under the
discretion.
statute.
It's the board's discretion, salary and benefits.
That's right, but you still have to get them in the door.
I understand that they have to be, you have to provide those two doctors, but their salary is negotiable, as are their benefits.
Correct.
Let me read this. Whereas NJSA 18A40-1 requires that a chief medical inspector and medical inspectors shall be employed by the Board of Education, and further requires that they shall be appointed for a fixed term, which term cannot be longer than the term of the board. Therefore, be it resolved that the below-named doctors are hereby appointed to the position and at the salaries indicated after their respective names below, for a fixed term running from February 1st, 2018 through January 3rd, 2019, unless otherwise indicated. Dr. John DeDucis, Dr. Vincent Serafino, we have a chief medical inspector, we have a medical inspector, 2 annual salaries. Salaries are subject to board discretion. Be it further resolved that the above-named chief medical inspector and medical inspector report to the superintendent of schools for assignment. Do I have a motion?
I motion.
And a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Trustee Alonso?
No.
Trustee Cruden?
Yes.
Trustee Desmond?
Yes.
Trustee Finerty?
Yes.
Trustee Munoz?
Yes.
Trustee Ryan?
Yes.
Trustee Pallotta?
Yes.
Vice President Wilbeck?
Yes.
President Broderick?
Yes.
Resolutions, I got a little bit of it. Well, let me make a statement first. Resolutions D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, and D8 are going to be tabled for this evening. I do have some questions. I'll leave it up to the speakers. Mr. Barry Dugan, 796 Avenue A, you did have a question in regards to Resolution D4. Do you still want to speak?
If I understand the purpose of this bid is to hire someone to look at the problem we've had in the school system for a number of years now that has undergone so much scrutiny over a period by the state, over 18 months, by our own auditors, for the term of their contract when they were here. I think it would be foolhardy to go on and continue this quest to find something that someone is looking for. I don't understand it. Why would you consider going out for bid to find out what happened when you've been told over and over again first by the superintendent of schools and Leo Smith, then by the state auditors, and I believe by our own auditors that we have locally or had locally prior to the last contract.
Regarding these D3, 4, 5, all of these, the board just received these, like you are, at the very last second. Any board member can propose resolutions, which is why we're tabling them, so that we could take a look at them at a committee, look them over, see what we think of them, and then go forward with that. None of these proposals are the result of what the board thought which should come up here tonight. It's the result of one member who thought he'd put up some resolutions, and he would like them to go, I guess, to committees, which is why we tabled them tonight, and that's where they'll go.
Okay, Joe, I understand, but I think, I'd like to go on record, it would be foolhardy and wasteful of school money to move forward on this particular resolution.
Thank you.
Next up, if you'd still like to speak, Tina Casillas, 3 Center Lane, had a question on one of the resolutions that are being tabled.
Hi. I know it's been tabled, but it's out there now, so
There you
I
go,
want to
say it.
address it.
D7?
D6 and D7.
Oh, okay, D6 and D7.
I read the agenda last night, as well as Mr. Alonso's 6 add-ons, which are literally his own agenda. I wish I could address all of them, but I only have 3 minutes, so these are the two I want to address. Resolution D6. It's absurd that I have to even mention this at all, but Bill Broderick's name is synonymous with Bayonne High School tennis. He founded the Bayonne High School girls tennis team in 1977, taught the BHS boys tennis team since 1978, has had over 700 career victories and 15 county championships in his 40 years as coach, long before Mr. Joe Broderick was ever Bayonne Board of Ed president. No one deserves the Bayonne High School tennis court dedication more than Mr. Broderick. However, Mr. Alonso considers this honor the work of, in his own words, nepotism and political collusion. Yet, in Resolution D7, Mr. Alonso wants to hire Jack Butchko to write grants for our district at the nominal fee of $31,000 per year beginning January 2018. I think that Mr. Alonso's suggestion of hiring his own campaign manager, Jack Butchko, as a grant writer more clearly defines political collusion. Thank you.
President Broderick, can I say something?
Trustee?
Can I say something? I would just also like to point out that Ms. Casillas is our Bayonne High School Teacher of the Year, so I want to give her a round of applause. As she spoke very eloquently, thank you.
Next up,
My name was mentioned,
I'm sorry,
He didn't put in a
I will,
request.
because I was not the campaign manager one.
I will defer,
And Dick Civitt,
excuse me, sir,
You didn't put in a card.
excuse me,
Sorry.
I will defer to our attorney.
The policies that you put a card in if you want to speak. If you haven't done that, it's to the discretion of the president whether he wants to speak at this point. But that would be during open public.
Well, if you want to put a card, we'll still accept it.
Okay, in the meantime, I'm going to go with what cards I have. Mr. Joe Wyatt, 301 Maple Avenue, North Plainfield.
At the last, this open? At the last board meeting, I wanted to point to a pathway to the future, and you can't do anything in 3 minutes, folks. And there's no other option to do it. So I wrote a letter to the board, okay? And I have a question. Is there any other way you can get it read into the record without reading it? Can it just be inserted into the record?
It is inserted into the record.
It's in the, if I ask for the minutes of the meeting, it will be in there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll give her the copy of
We'll
that
give her a
one.
copy of Mr. Wyatt, too.
Also,
Yeah, okay, 'cause-
we did receive the letter, we just don't have enough time.
Oh, I know that.
By the
I-
next meeting, we will certainly
Okay,
have
so,
something for you.
The only thing I request is that, let's have some conversation about this. I'm willing, there are places I'm willing to answer any question you have and discuss it. That's all. That's all I want is some discussion. I don't want something to go into a black hole that I never know what happens to it. Okay? I just want to know what you're doing with it, that's all. Now, if you would like, I will be perfectly willing to come to one of the workshops, and you can ask me all the questions you want about this letter and what you want to do. That's all I want, okay? I just don't want this thing to disappear into a black hole that nobody knows about it. And the reason I'm asking if it's read in the record, that if there are other media that might be interested in this letter, I'm trying to prevent that. I don't want to do that. I haven't wanted to do that for years. But if you won't respond, then you leave me no option but to try to find somebody else that will take note, okay? And this affects the children of Bayonne for a generation. If you make the wrong decision, it's really going to hurt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
Just as a point of reference to the board, what I'll do is, since Mr. Wyatt was nice enough to not make me read that whole thing, right after I read Mr. D'Angelo's letter, we will add Mr. Wyatt's letter right after that, Nancy? Okay. Thank you. Another speaker, Mr. Anthony D'Amico, 73 West 6th Street. That is the last cards I have on a particular resolution. Anthony is our first speaker in the open portion of the meeting.
Anthony D'Amico, 73 West 6th Street. Last year, we talked about that we were 3 years behind in our facility maintenance plan. I was just wondering if we made any progress and what the status is.
Mr. D'Amico, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Do I gotta repeat everything? Or? All right, Anthony D'Amico, 73 West 6th Street. Last year, we were 3 years behind in our 5-year maintenance plan. I was just wondering if we made any progress.
Mr. Smith?
Mr. D'Amico, the reason for the delay, first of all, was because the state never put the new platform up. We were there with all of our paperwork. We're going to a new platform electronically, and it never got up. We've met with our architects. They have visited each building over the fall. They've identified deficiencies in each building with the long-range facility plan. At the last board meeting, the board saw fit to hire bond counsel. Because we are now an elected board, this board has the opportunity to go out and bond for improvements district-wide. I believe district-wide there was somewhere around $55 million in projects that should be done in each and every building. As you know, our buildings, the brick and mortar, do not owe us anything. They average approximately 80 years old and 83 years old, Dr. Wanko. We did that the other day. And we try to keep them up as best as we can, but as time goes on, things do break down. We are addressing this. We will meet with bond counsel to go to the next step to get a referendum before the public. Now, the good thing about us being able to bond by ourselves is the debt service would come back to the Bayonne Board of Education, where for about every dollar we spend, we would get about 60 cents back on that dollar. So we're looking forward to these projects, to improving our schools, to giving our students and our staff and our citizens state-of-the-art facilities. So that's where we are with the long-range facility plan.
Quick question. The elevator, the 400,000, was that for everything or just the elevator itself?
That was for everything, the whole project. And it's a 4-story elevator, it's a freight elevator. If you'd like to go, I know you're a construction foreman, if you'd like to go take a ride in it, we can stop at every floor.
You didn't want to ride on the old one, I'll tell you. I used to take the steps quite a bit.
Okay. I'm going to allow Mr. Butchko to come up. He did have a question on a resolution. I'm going to allow him to do that first, and then he'll have his portion for the open meeting. Mr. Butchko? And please state your address for the recorder, since I don't have it on the card. And your question has to do with Resolution D7. And this is the resolution from tonight, not the resolution that's posted on the website. I know there's a mix-up in resolution numbers. We're going with the resolutions that are on tonight's agenda.
Okay, Jack Butchko, 214 Avenue B. D7, yes. We have an opportunity, due to the courtesy of Mr. Alonso, to name the tennis courts for Dick Savitt, who was once ranked #1 in the world in tennis. He's a Bayonne-born person who learned to play in Bayonne when he was a youth and had, needless to say, amassed a wonderful tennis career. Columbia University has its tennis center named after him, and he has never been honored in the city of his birth. The world does not end at the city line. We should take into consideration some of the great people who were born and raised in Bayonne and deserve notoriety. It took 65 years for Nicholas Oresco to get a school named after him, even though President Harry Truman gave him the Congressional Medal of Honor in 1945. It is time we broaden our horizons and start to name different structures and streets and other institutions here in Bayonne in reference to people who were born in Bayonne and went on to create a name for themselves and bring honor to their city. And again, can I speak on the matter of the fact that I've had 40 years doing grants for many cities, including Bayonne, being the grant director for Hudson County, as well as other cities and other towns in other states.
Mr. Butcher, I'd like to address you regarding Mr. Sabat.
Yes.
I was quite instrumental in having the tennis courts named for Coach Broderick. And I did indeed investigate Mr. Sabat. I did go on the internet because quite frankly, I had not heard of him. And I indeed was quite impressed with the fact that he did get to the Olympics and he was considered to be the #1 backcourt player. Truly an amazing tennis player.
Yeah.
To that, on the other side, now we're looking at this tennis court, and we have a tennis coach who has enormous impact on so many students in this school district. And it was fitting and is fitting that those tennis courts where he spent many hours coaching, not only coaching, but guiding our many students, young men as well as young women. This is a school facility. I would implore you we have beautiful Hudson County tennis courts. Why don't you maybe go to the county and ask them to name those courts that are on Kennedy Boulevard, which are beautiful, the Dick Sabat courts? I don't mean to diminish Mr. Sabat, but I would like to ask the question, what impact has he left on the students and the educational community of this city? And when I asked Mr. Smith what criteria, I don't know if you remember, Mr. Smith, when I said, how does one go about having the courts, an auditorium, an ice rink dedicated to a coach or any other individual? And he did say what had to happen was we had to reach out to the players that coach had impacted. And let me tell you something. We had no problem. We had stacks of letters commending and thanking Mr. Broderick for all that he had done for individual students. Indeed, we had a trustee of this sport who was coached by him, who also led a great team of players to come in here and speak on Mr. Broderick's behalf. This is an educational facility. That is a Board of Education tennis court, and it should be named for a Board of Education employee. Well done.
I sincerely disagree, because as you said, you had never heard of Dick Sabat. Now, why isn't he known in his hometown? Why isn't he being taught?
If I might,
Yeah.
with all due respect to you, there are a large number of tennis courts throughout the city of Bayonne. If you bring that same appeal to the city council and to the Hudson County Council, I'm sure that they would honor your request. The fact of the matter is that Bill Broderick, the tennis course that was named after, is a Bayonne champion. He's a champion in on and off the court, and I don't think you would even get to first base, even the batter's box, in trying to change the name of Bill Broderick on Bayonne's beloved tennis court.
Dick Sabat is a world-class tennis player.
Bill Broderick is a world-class Bayonneite.
And so is Sabat, who will be 91
Okay,
in March.
ladies and gentlemen, we're past that 3 minutes on that item. If you would like the open portion, where you felt that you were being talked about, by all means, start your 3 minutes on that.
No, as I said, as a former director of grants for Hudson County, grants person for Bayonne, and several other cities and states around the country, my qualifications in that regard are second to none, and why you do not want to bring in literally millions more for the nominal fee is, just, I'm flabbergasted.
Thank you.
Especially since the financial conditions you are in. Thank you so much for your consideration.
Okay. Since I have a card with any and all, would you like I know. Thank you. Mr. President, that is all the cards I have this evening. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I second.
Motion by trustee Cruden, seconded by trustee Desmond. On that motion and second, trustee Alonso, trustee Cruden, trustee Desmond, trustee Finnerty, trustee Munoz,
Absolutely.
trustee Ryan, trustee Bellato, Vice President Wilbeck,
Yes.
President Broderick. It is 8:56.